Let's cross to Melbourne now and catch up with David Southwick, who's the opposition police spokesperson. Thanks for joining us again, David. First up,
pleasure, Chris.
Nurses coming in from other states to help you out in Victoria. It must be you must have a lot of gratitude for them.
Absolutely. I know you just mentioned a special shout out, and I wanted to do the same to all of those frontline workers that are really helping us out now. We need you now more than ever. Those people, doctors, nurses, as many in my portfolio in police and emergency service workers, it's a tough job. They're fronting up each and every day to keep us safe, and I pay the utmost respect to all of them.
Now, this extreme lockdown and the curfew, does the Liberal opposition in Victoria support what Dan Andrews is doing here?
Well, look, as we've said all along, it should never have got to this, Chris. But the fact of the matter is that we're not getting on top of it. Unfortunately, we've had Daniel Andrews has completely got to a point where no one is listening to him. And if Victoria was a business at the moment, we would be in administration and we'd be at a point where you need to call in someone to help us out. And you mentioned nurses before. We desperately need the PM to come in and take over, because at the moment, Daniel Andrews is not showing the leadership that we need at the most. We've announced this stage 4 set of restrictions, Chris, and rather than doing it all in one go, he's done it in a staggered approach where he tells us what we can do as individuals yesterday and what businesses can do today, and they're conflicting messages. And there is no wonder that we're not getting this right when you have yesterday hairdressers were allowed to be open and today we find out hairdressers are closed. It's, again, just ambiguity, confusion, and no wonder we're not getting it right.
Look, there's lots to be critical of, and I don't shy away from that. But the critical point now is that Melbourne as a city is in community crisis. That has to be clear, because it's going into a curfew now, 8 o'clock curfews for 6 weeks. Businesses are being shut down. There are going to be more people without work, livelihoods under threat permanently, businesses under threat permanently. The crucial point is whether the opposition provides that support, I suppose, for the laws that are being imposed on the population.
Oh, look, absolutely, Chris, we need to get through this, and the opposition will provide whatever support that is necessary to ensure that we get to the other side. We've got 250,000 workers, as the Premier said today, that will be affected by this new stage. But at the end of the day, the numbers aren't coming down, they're going up. We are not anywhere near the other end of this. We've got so much a long way to go, and we need to do whatever's necessary, and we'll support that. I know that with as far as Victoria Police is concerned, back in March, Victoria Police had the Police Association called for state of disaster powers to enforce some of the rules, and I think we need that. Many of your viewers would have noticed that there are a lot of people that have just not been listening. People that should have been quarantining that have not been quarantining, and there needs to be consequences. So whatever the police need in terms of powers, we need to provide those powers to them. Whatever is needed to ensure that people understand the rules, we need to provide that as well. Whatever support the Premier needs, whether it be the nurses, as you've said, whether it be the ADF, which we're hearing more ADF to be deployed to Victoria, whatever, we're calling for help. We desperately need it. We've got to get through it, and the only way we're going to get through that is with everybody's help.
See, the great concern here, though, is that these sorts of responses are just unsustainable. We're being told we need to live with this virus for years, yet we're shutting down a major city and putting it under curfew when you've got something in the order of 500 or 600 infections a day, which we know by world standards is not a particularly serious situation to be in. Shouldn't Victoria have gotten on top of those other issues like contact tracing and keeping people away from work when they're sick before going to such an extreme measure?
Oh, 100%. There is no question. But unfortunately, we're now in this situation, and hopefully the Premier and others will be judged by their actions. But at the end of the day, it's people's lives, it's people's livelihoods, as you say. I know since the restrictions have been announced today, I've had over 100 emails from just local businesses that are really questioning whether they're going to be able to exist. The last lot of lockdowns were a point where people were remaining open in their businesses to effectively the difference whether they're going to stay open or not. This will send a lot of businesses to the wall. The livelihoods, the lives the health and well-being, the mental health of individuals at the moment is on a complete knife edge in Victoria. We are in a complete shambolic mess. We need all the help that we can get. And this should have never happened, Chris. This should have never happened. But at the moment, we can't finger point. What we've got to do is we've got to ball in together. We've got to do what we can to get through it, because I'm telling you, unfortunately, we keep seeing those numbers. We keep hearing about the deaths. We keep hearing about people not listening. We keep hearing about confusion. As I said, with police not knowing what their powers have been, it's taken since March to now to finally move from a state of emergency to a state of disaster to give the police the powers. And to give you that quick example, what we had before is if somebody was having a party in their home, the police would need the health to give them the ability to go in and check on those individuals rather than going in and doing it themselves. Every other state has had the police at the forefront of this in terms of being able to ensure people are doing the right thing. We have had health leading the response, and that is one of the reasons why we haven't got this right. We've finally moved to a state of disaster to give the police the powers that they need. Too little, too late, but at the end of the day, we've got to get through this, and that's why we support these changes, because ultimately we've got to ensure people safe, healthy, and their well-being is certainly looked after in these crucial times.
David, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
David Southwick there, who's the opposition, the police spokesperson in Victoria. The opposition supporting these measures, the laws, which is sensible, I would have thought, given what Victoria is confronting. But you've got to be free to debate these issues, because we have not got this right yet.